Morning guys, what's up? It's the Canadian Fire Gal. Thanks for joining me today and thanks for watching. Today I wanted to chat with you guys about hating your job. I think if you're on the fire path like I am, hating your job is kind of part of that journey. A lot of people who are drawn to the financial independence, retire early movement, let's call it, I think really do hate their jobs. And I don't think that's the same as hating to work. I think a lot of people that are drawn to the whole fire idea are in a job that they not only don't enjoy, but actively do not like at all. Personally, I've gone through quite a few jobs that I've really not liked, and it always gets to a point for me where I'm basically on edge, and one bad day is going to make me quit at that point. So I kind of have it in my head already that this isn't working, something's wrong, it's not me, it's the job, I need to move on, I need to get out of here. I'm in a toxic workspace, things like that. I honestly think that a lot of the times I'm blowing it up in my mind to be bigger than it actually is. This is what kind of led me into researching this and reading up a lot about when you hate your job and what exactly you could do, or maybe what is the underlying cause for those kinds of feelings. So the first question I would ask if you are in a similar situation to me where you hate your job is it actually the job, or is it just your attitude not only towards that particular workspace, but work in general? So because I have a history of having a lot of anger issues and I have a pretty thin bar when it comes to patience, I've been researching how to deal with that, and it definitely bleeds into the workspace. Because I've worked in retail for quite a long time, I think it made me a lot less patient with people, and it sort of got to a point where I took a lot of things at work very, very personally, when of course it isn't meant that way. This is why I think that a lot of people who hate their jobs don't actually hate the work itself, but have built up an idea in their minds about what the workplace should be and how other people should be treating them, and they're not really getting that expectation. Especially in today's day and age, I think that work sort of replaces a lot of things that people had in previous generations where you're really part of the community. Maybe you're part of a small group of people, something like a church or a small community, a tribe, anything where there were a lot of people that were very close-knit and interacted on a daily basis. Today's day and age, however, everybody kind of keeps to themselves, and you do interact with your coworkers more, I think, than anybody else in your life. So a lot of people put this insane amount of pressure on their work to fulfill a lot of things that it really shouldn't be fulfilling. One of the biggest parts of FIRE is building a life that you want outside of work. And this is massive, I think, for kind of separating yourself from your job. I do believe that a lot of people associate their worth and who they are with what they do for work. My biggest recommendation to anybody who feels like they hate their job is to step back a bit. If you're really in a position where you feel like one more bad day is going to make you quit on the spot, these are the tips that I would tell you to do to see how you feel with a different perspective. So number one, I would totally step back and do the absolute bare minimum. Do the bare minimum amount of work you have to do to get by. I think you would be very surprised at how little you can actually do without anybody really noticing. The reason that I think this is because a lot of people that I've worked with in the past do this on a regular basis, and it is almost the standard, I think, for a lot of workers to do the bare minimum and then go home to their actual lives. I think if you look at work in a way where it's just a job and it shouldn't be fulfilling anything else in your life, you might have a better time at detaching those emotions from your workspace. Another thing I would recommend is not getting too close to your coworkers. I've worked in places before where a lot of the people I worked with were very into gossiping, very into hanging out with each other outside of work, and just kind of mixing their personal lives with their work lives. And I think when you do that, it becomes a lot more stressful at work because not only are you worried about the actual work situation, but people can start to hold grudges if you don't show up to maybe a social event with all your coworkers, or maybe you are no longer participating in the gossiping that they're doing. I definitely think that there are some workspaces that are actually toxic and are probably making you very unhappy. But those are items that you should be looking at once you've emotionally stepped away from your connection of yourself with that job and with that career. If you're in a toxic workspace where you're being abused by your boss, like being yelled at or being talked down to, or your coworkers are bullying you, or there's a situation where maybe a workplace isn't actually safe, I have seen workspaces where it's just not safe to perform your job. Certain offices, health and safety is not a priority, nor is it even on a list of items due. So there are certain situations where it's just a bad space to be in general. And I think you need to be very objective about that. If all of your basic needs are being met at work, like it's a safe space to physically work in, you're not in a situation where you're being abused or bullied by people that you work with, then I think you really need to step back, remove yourself emotionally from that job and see if, is it actually the job that you're doing, or is it something you're thinking about in your mind, something you're not making up, but you're giving more energy to than it deserves. In my opinion, I would say that work needs to be totally separate from the rest of your life. This is the only way I've been able to find happiness in a workspace where I haven't really enjoyed the work too much, but I want the paycheck to be able to afford the things I want to do outside of work. There is nothing wrong with work just being a job. You do not need to find your passion. This is a absolutely toxic thing that is in the social space right now, is quotes like, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And sure, that might be true for a select amount of people. I know people that work in an industry that they absolutely love and it is their dream job. And that is completely fine. However, I don't think every single person on earth needs to find a job that they're passionate about. It's impossible. And I feel like shitting on somebody because they're doing a job that doesn't follow their passion is not right. Especially in the fire community, I think that you should be trying to find work that you find tolerable, that pays decently, so that you can build a life that you want to retire to. What's the whole point of retiring if you're just putting all of your identity, all of your time and effort, everything into a job that you're going to eventually retire from anyway? As we all know, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. I do honestly think that there are people out there who just hate working in general. There's nothing that would make them happy. I think that that's a very small minority, especially if they haven't really stepped away from being super emotionally invested in that job and having their identity be so closely tied to that career or that title. But I do think fire is a great path if you just want to get done with working for someone else completely and get out of the rat race. In those circumstances, I think that you should be saving a much higher percentage of your income. If you're the type of person who just absolutely hates work just in general, and you want to retire to maybe a project that you've been working on the side as a hobby, and you want to pursue that full time, but you don't want money to be an issue, fire is great for that because it really lets you open up your possibilities. If you're able to save 50% or more of your income, you can retire quite quickly. But before jumping to a situation where you're pushing yourself to save more and more of your money, I would definitely take a step back emotionally, do the bare minimum, and not really interact with your coworkers. Treat work like it's really supposed to be treated. It's a job, you get a paycheck, and you go home to your real life. Work is just something you do to support your personal interests, your hobbies, your social life. travel, anything that you actually want to do, work should be seen as a vessel to get you there, not something that gives you self-worth or gives you some kind of social status. Something that's taken me quite a long time to figure out is exactly this, that work doesn't have to be anything other than a paycheck. And that is completely acceptable. For me, everything I do outside of work is what I would consider like following my passion. And it's okay that that will never, or probably will never, make me any money, because the jobs that I do now to support my lifestyle and to continue on the fire path are tolerable. They're okay. Life is short, but it's also long. You have a lot of time to be able to try out different jobs. You can try out different careers. You can try different industries and just see what you like. Life is short, again, but it's also long. So you have that time to really figure out what you might enjoy. And that is okay if it changes as you go through life. The best thing about financial independence retire early is that it really teaches you the basic skills to be able to save money, put money aside, and be super financially responsible, so that having these career changes and maybe going back to school or taking time off to travel or taking time off to raise a family or anything like that is super possible, because you have the framework built up to allow you to do these things and to explore different areas of your life and different interests. I think hating your job is kind of a surface level problem. I don't think the problem is the actual work. I think that it is such an internal emotional thing that you just need to detach from. I've done this in a few other jobs where I was extremely emotionally invested in everything that was happening. I would get extremely upset when something went wrong, when I made a mistake. When someone else made a mistake that later on affected my work, I would be extremely angry for days. I would take that anger home with me and it would spill out into my personal life. The main point of this is that you should really just be building the life you want outside of work, and that should be your main focus. Whatever happens at the office can stay at the office, and that's totally fine. Don't feel like you need to follow your passion to find self-worth or meaning in your life. You don't need that. If you do hate your jobs and try out the items that I suggested, let me know how it goes. Let me know if you feel any different, or if maybe a little light bulb goes off in your mind and you're able to detach yourself. It took me a while to do it, but I recommend it if you're really in a spot where you absolutely hate your job and you feel like you'll just explode at any moment. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.